May 12, 1940. The skies over Maastricht explode as a squadron of outdated Fairey Battle bombers bravely take on the might of the German war machine, a relentless force that has unleashed a brutal offensive just 48 hours prior. Their mission? Destroy the vital bridges over the Albert Canal, a desperate attempt to stop the Nazi advance towards Brussels. It's a battle they can't win, their aircraft lacking the speed and firepower needed for such a daunting task. Yet, these brave pilots, outnumbered and outgunned, are determined to go down fighting, their sacrifice paving the way for the audacious attacks on the bridges of Maastricht and Sedan. Splitting into two desperate trios, the battles dove toward their objectives, facing a storm of anti-aircraft fire. Amidst the deafening roar, their metal wings engaged in an unseen clash. In the heat of technological ambition, the British Air Ministry threw down the gauntlet in April of 1933, aiming to revolutionize aerial warfare. The trusty Hawker Hart light bomber, a mainstay of the Royal Air Force, was due for retirement. The mission was straightforward: design a single-engine aircraft that could carry a 1,000-pound bomb load, manned by a duo over a range of 1,000 miles at a swift 200 miles per hour. Despite the formidable technical challenges, Fairey Aviation, a trailblazing company in the field, rose to the occasion. C.R. Fairey, the innovative leader of the company, had his doubts about the practicality of these lofty goals. Nonetheless, he proposed a variety of alternatives, balancing realism with ambition. Among the various entries, one design emerged as a clear frontrunner, meeting the ministry's stringent demands perfectly. Despite the odds, the Air Ministry greenlit Fairey's concept. They officially signed a contract on June 11, 1934, entrusting Fairey with building a prototype. Under the expert direction of Marcel Lobel, the Fairey team crafted an aircraft featuring a single cockpit and a three-person crew: pilot, observer, navigator, and wireless operator, gunner. As the prototype took form, the Air Ministry, eagerly awaiting its completion, placed a production order for 155 aircraft in June of 1935. The battle, although seemingly outdated from the start, found an unlikely advocate in the shifting political landscape of the mid-1930s. The looming threat of the Luftwaffe sparked a push for numerical equality, prompting the RAF to order 155 battles in 1935, even before the prototype had its first flight. As war loomed on the horizon, necessity took precedence over preference, thrusting the battle, primarily fitted with the Merlin III engine, into a crucial role. The Fairey Battle made its maiden flight on March 10, 1936, piloted by Flight Lieutenant Christopher Staniland. This aircraft quickly outshone its predecessors, the Hawker Hart and Hind bombers, with its ability to carry twice the payload over twice the range. The Fairey Battle stands as an intriguing blend of the modern and the outdated. Featuring a low wing and stressed skin construction, it looked like a large fighter plane. It could carry 4 250-pound bombs in its internal bay, plus 2 more under its wings, embodying a formidable offensive spirit. The crew of 3, housed in the long glass-house cockpit, entrusted their lives to this machine. But even as the battle took to the air, it was already becoming a relic of the past. The P-2732 specifications, which once marked its strength, had become artifacts of a bygone era. While the prototype met early expectations, it paled next to aircraft like the Vickers Wellington, designed from 1933 specs and boasting far superior performance. By 1939, the battle's age was evident, yet it remained on the front lines due to a lack of modern replacements. The Fairey Battle's story began on April 14, 1937, when the first production model took flight, powered by the groundbreaking 1,030 horsepower Rolls-Royce Merlin I engine. This debut marked the engine's introduction to Royal Air Force service, heralding a bright future for the celebrated power plant. Within a month, No. 63 Squadron became the first to adopt the Fairey Battle. As war loomed, the battle became a staple in 8 training squadrons of No. 6 Group and 10 frontline bomber squadrons of No. 1 Group, essential parts of the advanced air striking force. The Battle Mark I had some pretty impressive specs. It could hit a top speed of 257 miles per hour, had a range of 1,000 miles, and could soar up to 25,000 feet. Armed with a single forward-firing .303-inch machine gun, a rear Vickers K-gun, and carrying a payload of 1,000-pound bombs, it was quite formidable, but not without its flaws. The rear gunner's spot was plagued by a downdraft from its protective screen, which messed up rear visibility, an Achilles heel that would soon be exposed. As production ramped up, a new chapter began at a shiny new factory in Stockport, which later expanded to Austin Motors in Birmingham. By January 1939, the Royal Air Force had a fleet of over 400 Fairey Battles ready to go. With the stage set for an aerial assault on the Ruhr, 10 Fairey Battle squadrons under No. 1 Group made their move to France on September 2, 1939. This strategic maneuver was part of a pre-planned response to any German aggression in the West. But as the Germans were deep in the skirmishes of Poland, they avoided stirring up the Western powers, leading to what became known as the Phony War. In the heat of the conflict, the Fairey Battle aircraft carried out reconnaissance over German lines. A pivotal moment came on September 20, 1939, when a Fairey Battle from No. 88 Squadron brought down a Messerschmitt Bf-109, marking the first RAF kill of the war and securing the battle's place in history. Despite this victory, the weaknesses of the bombers against German fighters became glaringly obvious, hinting at the challenges the Fairey Battle would face. With war casting its dark shadow, the German invasion of Poland in September 1939 thrust the Fairey Battle into the thick of the action. 10 squadrons of these planes were sent to France as part of the Advanced Air Striking Force, setting the stage for some key moments. No. 88 Squadron notched the first Royal Air Force aerial victory of the war on September 20, 1939, taking down a dangerous Messerschmitt Bf-109. Just a week later, on September 27, 1939, No. 103 Squadron scored another win against the formidable Bf-109. But things soon took a darker turn. The raid on September 30, 1939, turned into a nightmare for No. 150 Squadron. 4 out of 5 Fairey Battles were lost over enemy lines in the Saar. The last remaining plane crashed during landing, highlighting the immense challenges these brave pilots faced. 1940 ushered in a desperate era with the German invasion of France and the Low Countries. The Fairey Battle, ill-equipped for ground attack missions, found itself thrust into a role it wasn't built for, lacking essentials like self-sealing fuel tanks and an armored cockpit. The losses were staggering. 77 out of 118 aircraft were downed between May 10th and 15th, 1940. In this chaos, on May 12, 1940, Flying Officer Donald Garland and Sergeant Thomas Gray became the first Royal Air Force members to receive the Victoria Cross in World War II. Their courageous assault on the Veldwezelt Bridge in the Netherlands, though honored posthumously, showcased the unyielding spirit of those who braved impossible odds. The Fairey Battle's weaknesses became obvious during the early days of the German Blitzkrieg, tasked with performing low-altitude attacks on advancing German forces. The plan was to dodge enemy fighters, but it left the aircraft vulnerable to intense anti-aircraft and small arms fire. The results were tragic. On May 10, 1940, the first day of the German assault, 32 Fairey Battles set out to strike enemy troops, and 13 didn't make it back. The next day was no better, with 7 out of 8 planes lost. Then, on May 12th, a group of 5 battles went after key bridges over the Albert Canal, and none returned. Flight Officer D. Garland and Sergeant T. Gray were awarded the Victoria Cross posthumously. By May 14th, the RAF had to abandon low-level attacks due to unsustainable losses. Although new tactics briefly seemed effective, on the 14th, 63 battles encountered Bf-109s while targeting canal bridges, resulting in the loss of 35 aircraft. High casualties continued as the RAF pulled back in the face of the German advance. The remaining squadrons were eventually withdrawn to Britain on June 15, 1940. Having lost most of their aircraft and proving that the battle couldn't handle low-level missions or fighter opposition. As the casualties piled up, the remaining Fairey Battle squadrons took to the skies for their final mission on June 15, 1940. This marked the end of their frontline service. Between May 10th and June 20th, 1940, a whopping 137 Fairey Battles were lost, signaling the downfall of this once proud aircraft. When they returned to Britain, No. 1 Group reassembled, still flying the battle. Daylight raids were scrapped, and most squadrons shifted to nighttime operations, targeting German invasion barges in French and Dutch ports. During the fierce Battle of Britain from July 10th to October 31st, 1940, the Fairey Battle took center stage. 6 squadrons, including the newly formed Polish units No. 300 and 301, were part of the restructured No. 1 Group Bomber Command. These squadrons were crucial in the battle, making their operational debut on July 21st, 1940. On that day, 6 aircraft from numbers 103 and 150 Squadron hit oil storage tanks in Rotterdam, Netherlands. Throughout the battle, the Fairey Battle flew a total of 289 sorties. The final mission took place on October 15, 1940, targeting Boulogne and Calais in France. Remarkably, only 6 aircraft were lost during this intense period. After this chapter, the battle squadrons transitioned to the Vickers Wellington, signaling the farewell of the Fairey Battle as a bomber for UK-based squadrons, though it continued its bombing missions overseas until mid-1941. The battle came in several versions powered by different Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, such as the Mark II, Mark III, and Mark V, but these differences were mainly in the engines themselves. After September 1940, the battle was pulled from frontline service and took on new roles in training drills both in Britain and Canada. It was also repurposed as a target tug called the Battle TT, and as a trainer with models like the Fairey Battle T and Battle IT. The battle's story didn't end in Britain. 16 of these light bombers were used by the Belgian Air Service. In June 1937, Duncan Menzies, a Fairey test pilot, demonstrated the aircraft to the Belgian Air Ministry, leading to their purchase. These aircraft saw action during the German invasion in May 1940. By the time production ceased on September 2, 1940, a total of 2,200 Fairey Battles had been made. The primary manufacturer, Fairey, built 1,155 units, while the Austin Car Company, part of the Shadow Factory scheme, assembled 1,029. One lone aircraft was produced at Hayes, wrapping up orders placed by the end of 1939. Yet, despite its wide production run, the Fairey Battle confronted the brutal truths of wartime aviation. Like the German Stuka, its success was heavily dependent on having local air superiority, which was a rare advantage. The formidable Messerschmitt Bf 109 often outclassed the battle, leaving it vulnerable and ill-equipped for the dangerous missions it faced. This mismatch led to significant losses, forever marking the Fairey Battle's place in aviation history with a somber note.